One head, two tails, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. 2 heads, 1 tail, Yang Yin. Our bottom trigram will be read as solid, 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 which is Kuion heaven. Kuion is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change in what endures within it. He confronts us with truth in what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram will be read as solid, broken. This is dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Dewy, lake, or marsh above Kuion heaven give us the primary hexagram of 43. Once our changing lines change, that of 3 and 5, our bottom trigram will then change into solid, solid, broken, which is dewy, lake, or marsh. And then the top trigram will transform to solid, broken, broken. This is Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Zen thunder above dewy, lake, or marsh give us a supporting hexagram of 54. We'll get the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Our primary hexagram, 43, I-ming calls parting, detachment from discriminating consciousness, repelling the energy of external influences. And hexagram 54, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. I don't know why I'm having a hard time. There we are. 54 is making a young girl marry, seeing the real within the false. We'll also take a look at our hexagrams in these cool I Ching cards that I got. Pretty incredible little deck. Trying to find the name on here. By Kibi. Okay. So hexagram 43, parting, her card says breakthrough, and this is what it looks like. There we go. And in the book for parting, this, by the way, is the last time I'll be doing readings in this garage. We're moving, and so it's kind of bittersweet. Let's see. Am I able to find what I'm looking for? That's the question. Aha ha ha. 43, breakthrough. Open up, eliminate, rupture, drive away. Get rid of the dictator. The bias is falling apart. Don't try to solve it by force. The top line, Yao, is a yin. Broken the line, so the melon is drawn as a symbol. Curiouser and curiouser. And 54. Looks like this. Marrying maiden. Oops. Very interesting. And in the little booklet for that, it says, marrying maiden, views on marriage according to desire, pursuit of pleasure. Young people try to get whatever they want without understanding their situation. One of the hexagram that expresses the relationship between men and women. Interesting. Next, we will look at our hexagrams and changing lines from Hilary Barrett's perspective in I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. It's a nice introductory I Ching commentary, yet still nice and profound. When we approach the hexagram to, the I Ching rather, to consult the oracle, the bring, think of the words before saying them. The question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Hexagram 43, Hilary Barrett calls deciding. Key questions. What do you stand for? How do you define yourself? What belongs in your realm and where do you need to make a clean break? Oracle. Deciding. Tell it in the king's chambers. With truth, call out, there is danger. Notify your own city. Fruitless to take up arms, fruitful to have a direction to go. The old Chinese character for deciding shows a hand holding up a token, asserting your identity and right to be heard, even in the king's chambers. This is where decision begins, at the very center of power. That center might be inside your own mind and yet still not feel safe. Declaring the truth loud and clear is dangerous. It stirs up old ghosts, inner and outer. Yet better this than ignoring and neglecting them. As the message of the decision spreads out from the center, it is fruitless to take up arms. This is a time to communicate, not fight. It will serve you better to focus with clear intention on what you're moving towards rather than what you're reacting against. Image. Lake above heaven, deciding. The reason that's interesting, I just did a collaboration with Helen from Timeline Traveler Tarot and also Eye of the Serpent Tarot. And in that reading, we got, I don't know if it was this hexagram, but it said essentially that it's basically important to start focusing on what you're moving towards rather than what you're reacting against. Image, lake above heaven, deciding. A noble one distributes riches to reach those below. She dwells in power and virtue and also shuns things. I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below. It's on her channel, Timeline Traveler Tarot. A lake above heaven is a cloud, sharing the blessing of rain and always pure, never in contact with the mud. The noble one's generosity is like this, a pure, inspired expression of her character without ulterior motive. She gives and also knows what to stay away from. Sequence. Deciding follows from hexagram 42, increasing. Increasing and not reaching an end must mean breakthrough, and so deciding follows. Deciding means breaking through. As more and more is poured in, the limits must surely break. Instead of traveling with the cycle from increase to decrease, you take a positive decision to use and share the blessing. Pair. Deciding forms a pair with hexagram 44, coupling. Coupling means meeting, supple meets firm. Deciding means breaking up, firm breaks up supple. Hexagram 43 has 5 firm, unbroken lines, pushing out a single supple open line. They embody an assertion of identity that breaks through indecision. In hexagram 44, the single open line finds its way back. And hexagram 54, our supporting hexagram, puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 54, Hilary Barrett calls the marrying maiden. Key questions. How can you grow into this situation? What does it mean to you to come second? How sustainable is this? Oracle, the marrying maiden, to set out to bring order, pitfall. No direction is fruitful. A young girl, not yet a woman, comes home to her new husband's house. A noble man of old China would marry his first wife with great ceremony. She would go to her new home accompanied by a group of female relatives who became second wives. These are the marrying maidens. They are present simply to make relationships easier and have no status of their own. As a marrying maiden, you have accepted a relationship where you come second. You are only here to play a supporting role. It would be disastrous to try to shape the situation to fit your own needs. You are too junior, not yet ready to exert influence. There is no point in your setting intentions or making plans. All you can do is to feel your way, adapt, and find your place, without originating any action or having any agenda of your own. Image. Above the lake there is thunder, the marrying maiden. A noble one through ever-flowing endings knows what wears out. The lake is stirred and awoken by thunder, the vibrations traveling deep through the water. The noble one is inwardly as fluid as the lake, always open and responsive. So the shock of the new quickens her heart to a new awareness, and she senses the current of change. She sees how things that are complete are also flowing. Like water, this is how they endure, as the generations of a family endure. And as the spreading vibrations from the thunder reveal what is flawed, she also gains a direct and sure knowledge of what is too brittle to last. Sequence. The marrying maiden follows from hexagram 53, gradual progress. Making progress must mean a time to come home, and so the marrying maiden follows. To come home also means to marry, and gradual progress is associated with the ceremonies of marriage. However, gradual or careful the preparations, now comes the moment of transition into a new life. Instead of being able to change her circumstances gradually to keep pace with her inner development, the marrying maiden has to develop herself to catch up with the sudden and complete change in her circumstances. We will also look at our changing lines. What were they? 3 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. They say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Changing line 3 has the general context: an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So changing line 3 in our primary hexagram 43, deciding. Vigor in the cheekbones means a pitfall. Noble one decides, goes on alone, meets the rain, and is indignant as if she were soaked through. Not a mistake. You could locate your power in your cheekbones. You could be hard, rigidly unresponsive, concentrating on the face you present to others. This would repel relationships and lead to misfortune. Or you could decide like the noble one who takes a stand as herself without wearing a mask of strength. Such supple authenticity opens the way for real exchange with real people. Full, free, enriching, and messy. Your dignity may not survive, but the rain makes things grow. And changing line 5, amaranth on high ground, decide, move to the center, no mistake. The nutritious, healing amaranth grows on the high ground by itself. Nobody planted it there. Although you didn't intend or design it, there is something of value available, but not within easy reach. Is it worthwhile to go after it? You are well placed to decide how best to use your energy. What would be the balanced action? Next, we will look at Liu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature, so buckle up. Get ready for some 1977. What? 1796 language. Jeez. And a bunch of fumbly language. Okay. Hexagram 43, parting, is what Liu I-ming calls 43. Parting is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain, it is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. Explanation. Parting is separating and leaving. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yin is on top of 5 yangs. Yang is about to become pure, while yin is about to disappear. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, harmoniously acting with strength, strong but not violent. It equally has the meaning of using yang to get rid of yin, so it is called parting. This hexagram represents repelling yin by yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, reduction. In reduction, one stills rejoicing and does not rejoice arbitrarily, so as to foster yang and repel yin, using inherent sane energy to repel the energy of external influences. The energy of external influences is invited by the discriminatory consciousness. So if you want to repel external influences, nothing is better than to first part with the discriminatory consciousness. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. But this discriminating consciousness is loved by the human mind. If you want to part from it, it is best first to clarify the mind. Once the mind is clarified, the mind of Tao appears, and the discriminatory consciousness is easily dismissed. Therefore, parting is lauded in the royal court. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. When the mind clearly understands true and false, then the mind is not deluded by the discriminatory consciousness and easily parts from it. But since the discriminatory consciousness has been in charge of things for so long, its roots are deep and its authority is tremendous. One cannot attack it impetuously, but must find the right way between intensity and laxity before it is possible to settle anything. When the text says the call of truth, it means the true mind and genuine intent as the means to amass sane energy. When it says involves danger, it means caution and wariness is the way to ward off aberrant energy. Addressing one's own domain means refining the self. It is not beneficial to go right to war means to wait for the proper time. Once one has been able to amass the right kind of energy and ward off the wrong kind of energy, and also has refined oneself, awaiting the proper time to act, myriad objects are all empty, and there is just the discriminating consciousness alone. Take advantage of the right time to detach from this, and there will be unfailing benefit. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, serene without pressure, awaiting the right time to act. This seems to be the secret of parting from yin. And our supporting hexagram 54, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Making a young girl marry. Making a young girl marry to go on will lead to misfortune. No profit is gained. Explanation. Making a young girl marry means intercourse is not proper. In the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, movement, and below is lake, joy. Inwardly delighted and outwardly moved, actively seeking enjoyment, behavior obeying emotion. This is like using a girl to seek a son. Yin is first, yang comes after. The intercourse is not proper, so it is called making a young girl marry. This is the hexagram of seeking the real within the false. It follows on the previous hexagram, mountain. Mountain means stopping in the proper place, getting rid of incorrect enjoyment and improper action. Before the primordial in people is spoiled and mixes with acquired conditioning, yin and yang are united. Yang controls yin, yin follows yang. one energy flows and the living potential persists, wholly integrated with the design of heaven. They merge naturally, without depending on human effort. Then when acquired conditioning takes over one's actions, the primal true yang is lost outside. Discriminatory awareness uses consciousness to produce illusions. Yin and yang go awry. The elemental energies get mixed up. Desires stir and emotions arise. The mind gets mixed up with things. Delighting in externals from within, inwardly moved by externals, one's inherent true yang is evaporated by other. Self is represented by the east in the province of thunder. Other is represented by the west in the province of lake. The east is the host, essence. The west is the guest, feeling. Lake seeking thunder is disturbing essence by emotion. External energy injuring inner energy. Furthermore, lake is associated with metal, governing punishment and killing. Thunder is associated with wood, governing life and merit. When punishment and killing overcome life and merit, positive energy dissipates day by day, and negative energy grows day by day. When this dissipation and growth reaches the point where there is pure negativity and no positivity, even if you want to avoid dying, you cannot. Therefore, if a young girl is made to marry, to go on will lead to misfortune, no profit is gained. So making a young girl marry means using lake to seek thunder, or using emotion to seek essence. Even if they interact, it is not right. Sages have a way to restore the primal while in the temporal. If one seeks lake with thunder, using essence to seek feeling, not only will one not be overcome by emotion, one will also be able to snatch the true yang within feeling and restore it to essence. When feeling returns to essence, punishment turns into merit. Essence loves the righteousness of feeling. Feeling loves the goodness of essence. Essence and feeling united, there is a return to correctness, reverting to the original, going back to the fundamental. The spiritual embryo solidifies, and even when meeting misfortune, it turns to fortune. Then there will be unfailing benefit where before there was none. This is an attempt to explain correctness in the midst of incorrectness. We will also look at our changing lines 3 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context in emerging identity, facing a transition, with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So, hexagram 43, changing line 3. Parting. Changing line 3. Vigor in the face has bad luck. A superior person leaves what is to be left, going alone, encountering rain, and so getting wet. There is irritation, but no fault. Explanation. When one is excessively forceful, in a hurry to achieve, the vigor shows this in the face, and bad luck normally ensues. It is lucky if one uses truth to get rid of falsehood, as the decisiveness of a superior person leaving what should be left. The only trouble is that one is firm, alone without flexibility. When one runs into rain, gets wet, and cannot immediately achieve the objective, there is irritation. However, once one has gotten wet, though at first one was unable to effect a firm resolution, in the end one will surely resolve it gently, and can avoid the fault of aggressiveness. This is adamantly rushing to part from yin. And changing line 5. Wild burdock root, cut through resolutely. Balanced action is impeccable. Explanation. Close on the yin line above, while the earthly is in the upper position, the celestial is in the lower position. The mind of Tao is fooled by the human mentality and clings fondly to the discriminatory consciousness, now separating from it, now not separating. It is like wild burdock root, which must be cut through resolutely. The roots cannot be cut through all at once. However, the contrast between the mind of Tao and the human mentality is a matter of a hairbreadth. On this side, the mind of Tao. On that side, the human mentality. If one succeeds in parting from earthliness, this is the mind of Tao. If one does not succeed in parting from earthliness, this is the human mentality. The mind is the abode of the consciousness. The discriminatory consciousness is connected with the human mentality, so whether they can be split apart definitively is uncertain. Luckily, when the celestial yang is about to become pure and the earthly yin is about to disappear, reason ultimately prevails over desire, and even if one cannot part from it spontaneously, one will be able to do so with effort. Therefore, by balance and action, one can be impeccable. This is parting from negativity by effort when strength is being dragged by weakness. We'll also read the commentary section for each of our hexagrams. 43, parting. Lake above, heaven below. Moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. Parting is a bursting forth. Above is lake, and below is heaven. Moisture ascends to heaven, then changes into rain and waters myriad creatures. It is as though heaven is being unselfish and parts with the moisture to let it flow down. This is the image of parting. What superior people see in this is that just as myriad creatures grow when there is moisture in the sky, so are the people secure and peaceful when those above have benevolence. Therefore, they distribute blessings to reach those below, causing everyone to benefit from their kindness. To distribute to those below is to distribute blessings. If one distributes blessings unself-consciously, then the giving is great. The generosity is real. This is like heaven covering everything and giving life to all creatures. This is what is meant by the saying, those of great virtue do not consider themselves virtuous. They are companions of heaven. If one is conscious of distribution of blessings being virtuous, this is presumption of virtue. There is still selfishness in the heart, and the distribution of blessings will not endure. This is not to be considered virtue. This is what those who distribute blessings are to strictly avoid. Therefore, superior people view others and self as the same. Distributing blessings, they do not expect any reward. They have virtue, but do not presume upon it. So their virtue grows day by day, while their minds grow humbler day by day. They part with all self-satisfaction and self-importance. This comes about as inevitably as moisture in the sky falls to the earth. Working on the Tao, accumulating achievement and building up practice, carrying out such and such expedients to benefit others, is like distributing blessings to people. But many who carry out expedients to benefit others do so without genuine sincerity. Some do it for reputation, some do it for profit, some make an ineffective outward show of helping people based on ancient models and then blame others when things don't go quite as they wish. These are all cases of having no virtue yet presuming on virtue, and are not worthy of the name of benefiting others. Observe how heaven bestows blessings on myriad creatures. Does it expect any reward from them? Not expecting any reward from myriad creatures, heaven has virtue but does not presume upon it. If even heaven does not presume upon its virtue, how much less is the virtue of ordinary people to be presumed upon? Whenever one does anything for the benefit of others, if one can emulate heaven in not presuming upon virtue, one's virtue will not fail to be great. In our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 54, making a young girl marry. Thunder above, lake below. There is thunder above a lake, making a young girl marry. Thus, superior people persist to the end and know what is wrong. Making a young girl marry means that intercourse is not proper. Above is thunder, below is lake. There is thunder above a lake. Thunder stands for agitation, movement. Lake stands for calm, stillness. Thunder agitating a lake, movement disturbing the stillness. The water of the lake overflows. The intercourse of yin and yang is not proper. This is the image of making a young girl marry. What superior people see in this is that there are true and false yin and yang. There is right and wrong practice. The intercourse of true yin and yang comes about naturally, and thus can endure, while the intercourse of false yin and yang comes about through forced effort, and hence ultimately cannot last long. Therefore, superior people want to persist to the end, yet first should know what is wrong. Persisting to the end means to persist to the end of eternity. To know what is wrong means to know the degeneracy of what is incorrect. The tradition of connected sayings of the I-ming says, by finding out truth and fulfilling one's nature, one arrives at the meaning of life. The Tao of nature and life is all a matter of determining right and wrong by finding out truth. Finding out truth means finding out the principle of communion of yin and yang. The dividing line between the primordial and the conditioned is but a hairbreadth. On one side is the primordial, on the other side is the conditioned. Conditioned yin and yang always interact, but their intercourse is not correct. It has no conclusion and goes wrong. For example, there are ignorant people in the world who join the energies of heart and genitals, or join the active and passive energy channels up and down the back and front of the body, or cause energy to rise up the spine at midnight and descend down the front of the body at noon, or gather energy from sexual intercourse, or heat lead and mercury together, or regulate their exhalations and inhalations. All of these are recognizing the artificial as real and trying to force communion, imagining that they will thereby live long. Instead, they are hastening death. This is quite wrong, a serious degeneration. If practitioners of the Tao want to persist to the end, they should first know what is wrong. If they know what is wrong, they will not be deluded by the depraved words of false teachers. Then if they seek to persist to the end, there is hope they will be closer. And next we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which is a nice synthesis of several I-ming commentaries into one helpful place, which I've left links to in the description box below. James Dekorne is a practitioner of the Tao himself and has left helpful editor's notes and the notes and paraphrases at the very end of each hexagram, and has quoted such things as the Kabbalah and Carl Jung. 43, James Dekorne calls resoluteness. Other titles might be breakthrough, the symbol of decision, resolution, determination, parting, removing corruption, eradication. Judgment leg, recognizing the risks involved in criminal prosecution. Justice demands a resolute proof of the culprit's guilt in the royal court. One informs one's own city that armed force is not necessary. In this way, progress is assured. Wilhelm Sachsbane's breakthrough, one must resolutely make the matter known at the court of the king. It must be announced truthfully. Danger. It is necessary to notify one's own city. It does not further to resort to arms. It furthers one to undertake something. Blowfold. Resolution. When a proclamation is made at the court of the king, frankness in revealing the true state of affairs is dangerous. In vital matters, frankness may prove dangerous. In making announcements to the people of his own city, it is not fitting for the ruler to carry arms. It is better to repose trust in our own people. It is favorable to have some goal or destination. Lu. Determination. Someone is proud in the king's court, and the king trusts him. If one exposes the truth, danger. It must be told to one's own people. Using force does not benefit. It does benefit to do something else. You must decide how to deal with a situation before it reaches a dangerous point, or things will take their own course and overwhelm you. Ritsuma/Karcher. Parting. Displaying tending towards kingly chambers, conforming, crying out, possessing adversity. Notifying originates from the capital. Not harvesting, approaching arms, harvesting, possessing, directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of separation and diverging directions. It emphasizes that resolutely dividing your energies is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy. Resolution. Raised up at the royal court, returning crying out, there is danger. Announcing from the sky, not beneficial to regulate the belligerents. Beneficial to have some place to go. Clary 1. Parting is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain. It is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. Wu. Eradication indicates a conceited pronouncement in the royal court, and on the one hand, and a concerted call for vigilance on the other. It is essential to make the danger known to the people, but not to resort to force now. It is advantageous to have undertakings. The image. Leg. The image of the waters of a marsh mounting over heaven forms a resoluteness. The superior man, in accordance with this, does not hoard his wealth, but shares it with his subordinates. Wilhelm/Baines. The lake has risen up to heaven, the image of breakthrough. Thus, the superior man dispenses riches downward and refrains from resting on his virtue. The card looks like that. What we got? I'm going to look at it again. 43. Breakthrough. It's almost like they have people down on these ladders below. So, almost like they're going to get something from heaven and distribute it down to these people on the ladders, possibly. This green thing is interesting. Is that a really large grape? I don't know, man. Maybe they entered a grape growing contest. And he's like Simba holding it up. For like heavenly blessings. I'm not sure. Dropped all my cards. Apologies. Okay. I'm going to use these later for getting a reading from the Tao Te Ching. All right. So that was that. This is this. Tell you what you want and tell you what you get. You get away from me. Get away from me. Wilhelm/Baines. I'm not sure if I read this one, but we'll read it again if I did. The lake has risen up to heaven, the image of breakthrough. Thus the superior man dispenses riches downward and refrains from resting on his virtue. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes a marshy lake being drawn, sucked towards the sky. The superior man distributes his emoluments to those below. Dwelling in virtue, he renounces them. Lu. The lake ascends to heaven, symbolizing determination. The superior man distributes wealth below him without displaying his favors. Ritsuma/Karcher. Above marsh with respect to heaven, parting. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses spreading out benefits to extend to the below. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. And to actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being what it is meant to be. Wu, the march rises to heaven. This is eradication. Thus, the Chunsi, or chief son or superior person, distributes his emolument to those below and is loath to monopolize virtues. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, resoluteness is the symbol of displacing or removing. We see the dynamic lines displacing the magnetic line. The figure displays the attributes of strength and cheerfulness. There is displacement, but harmony continues. The exhibition of the criminal's guilt in the royal court is shown by the magnetic line mounted on 5 dynamic lines. The awareness of danger and appeal for justice makes the matter clear. If he has recourse to arms, what he prefers will soon be exhausted. When the advance of the dynamic lines is complete, there will be an end to displacement. Leg. Resoluteness represents the 3rd month, when the last vestige of winter, represented by the 6th line, is about to disappear before the advance of summer. The single line at the top symbolizes an inferior man, a feudal prince or high minister who is corrupting the government. The 5 yang lines below are the representatives of good order. The lesson of the hexagram is how to remove corruption from the kingdom. He who would do this must do so by the force of his character more than the force of arms. Never forgetting the dangerous nature of his undertaking, he must openly denounce the criminal in the court and awaken general sympathy to his cause. Among his own adherents in his own city, he must prevent any tendency to resort to armed conflict. As a worthy statesman, he is not motivated by private feelings. Hu Pingwen says, if but a single inferior man is left, he is sufficient to make the superior man anxious. If but a single inordinate desire be left in the mind, that is sufficient to disturb the harmony of the heavenly principles. The eradication in both cases must be complete before the labor is ended. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Resoluteness involves astute discernment of what is wrong and a discreet re-establishment of order without polarizing the situation. Be clear in your own strategy, but let common sense be your guide about how much you need to disclose to others. Avoid aggression at all costs. The superior man maintains equilibrium by distributing his energy equitably. He smooths things out. The 43rd hexagram is an image of the eradication of an inferior force from the situation at hand. 5 yang lines resolutely advance on the single yin line, which is about to be pushed out of the hexagram at the top. This is a negative image of the 23rd hexagram, disintegration, which shows the opposite situation of 5 lower yin lines undermining 1 upper yang line. It is instructive to compare the nearly identical message for the superior man in the images of each of these figures. The idea is one of fostering an equitable distribution of energy within the situation. Disintegration and resoluteness required to rectify. Disintegration and the resoluteness required to rectify it are extreme situations requiring extreme measures. Such extremes must always be neutralized through a justly distributed balance of forces. That's hard to read. A quote from Plato in the Republic. It's not the concern of law that any one class in the city fare exceptionally well, but it contrives to bring this about for the whole city, harmonizing the citizens by persuasion and compulsion, making them share with one another the benefit that each class is able to bring to the commonwealth. And it produces such men in the city not in order to let them turn whichever way each wants, but in order that it may use them in binding the city together. Compare the nuances of meaning in each translation of the judgment. Wilhelm's is most radical, advising a direct, albeit dangerous, expose of what is wrong. Most of the others imply room for discretion about what needs to be revealed. Diplomacy is the art of knowing when full disclosure only prevents resolution of the problem. Ritzema/Karcher allude to the proper mindset required to manage such situations. A Chun Tzu uses residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. To reside in actualizing Tao is to live directly from one's essence, and when this is associated with keeping aloof, we get an image of quietly rectifying a situation without revealing our purpose or strategy. Psychologically interpreted, resoluteness, like disintegration, depicts an extreme situation which must first be rectified, then prevented from reoccurring through the maintenance of a just balance of power, which is administered by the ego under the will of the self. Next, we will look at our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 54, James Dekorne calls propriety or making do. Other titles might be the marrying maiden, the symbol of the marriage of the younger sister, marriageable maiden, the marrying girl, subordinate, the second wife, converting maidenhood, returning maiden, making a young girl marry, marrying a young girl, marrying a maiden, unilateral action, impropriety, improper advances. And a quote from D.F. Hook, deals with life and death, sex and birth. It contains a warning about a person or situation. It deals essentially with discrimination, the first step on the path without which we are useless. Judgment, leg. Propriety indicates that action will be evil and in no wise advantageous. Wilhelm/Baines, the marrying maiden, undertakings bring misfortune, nothing that would further. Blofeld, the marriageable maiden, advance brings misfortune. No goal or destination is now favorable. Liu, the marrying girl, undertaking leads to misfortune, nothing benefits. Ritzema/Karcher, converting maidenhood, chastising, pitfall. Without direction, harvesting. Without direction, harvesting. In order to take advantage of the situation, do not impose a direction on events. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the changing status of someone who cannot control their circumstances. It emphasizes that finding a real field of activity through accepting this imposition is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, returning maiden, to be upright is inauspicious, there is no place beneficial. Wu, marrying a maiden indicates that it will be foreboding to make moves, there is nothing to be gained. The image, leg. The waters of a marsh with thunder over it form the hexagram of propriety. The superior man, in accordance with this, having regard to the far distant end, knows the mischief that may be done at the beginning. Wilhelm/Baines, thunder over the lake, the image of the marrying maiden. Thus the superior man understands the transitory in the light of the eternity of the end. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes thunder over a pool. The superior man knows that to achieve an enduring end, he must be aware of his mistakes at the beginning. Liu, thunder over the lake symbolizes the marrying girl. The superior man knows the cause of error and persists in his virtue to the end. Ritzema/Karcher, above marsh possessing thunder, converting maidenhood. A Chun Tzu uses perpetually completing to know the cracked. Clary 2, thunder over a lake, marrying a young girl. Developed people consider lasting results and know what is wrong. The way developed people handle things is that before they take the time to ask how to start something, they first consider lasting results. If they think of lasting results, they know what is wrong with acting prematurely, like marrying an immature girl. If you understand the meaning of this, you can apply it to government and to contemplating mind as well. Wu, there is thunder above the marsh, this is marrying a maiden. Thus the Chun-Si, or chief son or superior person, in the pursuit of lasting excellence, realizes the flaws and corrects them. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, in the marriage of a young bride, the proper relationship between heaven and earth is seen. Nothing could grow or flourish if heaven and earth did not unite. The marriage of a young bride is therefore both the commencement and goal of humanity. But here, the desire of pleasure employs movement to attain union. This action will be evil because the lines are in inappropriate places, and the magnetic 3 and 5 are mounted on dynamic lines. Leg. The Chinese phrase for this hexagram might be equivalent to the English giving in marriage, but there are some special meanings in this case which must be understood. The judgment gives a bad auspice because the trigram of the youngest daughter is beneath the trigram of the eldest son. Since the action of the hexagram begins with the lowest trigram, we have two violations of propriety. First, the marriage is initiated by the woman and her friends. She goes unilaterally to her future home instead of the bridegroom coming to fetch her. Second, the parties are unequally matched. There is too great a disparity in their ages. In addition, all the lines in the hexagram except the top and the bottom are in places inappropriate for them. Some commentators insist that the symbol of the contracting of a marriage in this hexagram sets forth some principles which should obtain in the relation between a ruler and his ministers. The growth of things in nature from the interaction of heaven and earth is analogous to the increase of mankind through the interaction between male and female in marriage. The Kong-Hsi editors reconcile this good auspice with the unfavorable judgment by saying, the interaction of the yin and yang cannot be dispensed with, but we ought to be careful about it in the beginning in order to prevent mischief in the end. The error here is that the desire for the marriage originated with the lady, and that she is heedless of the disparity in their ages. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Propriety means that unilateral action is inappropriate. The superior man understands that the work is guided from within, and that the choices which ignore this truth can only retard its progress. Present actions originate future consequences. Pay heed to your choices. The traditional name for this hexagram is the Marrying Maiden, a title which does not convey to modern Western readers the subtlety of its symbolism. Blofeld says, this hexagram is, on the whole, a most unfortunate omen. We must not suppose that it deals only with marriage. What is said about the maiden symbolizes in some way or other what we may expect for ourselves within the context of our inquiry. The figure is certainly difficult, but unfortunate only if its import is resisted or denied. Any portrayal of our situation which eliminates illusion, however painful the realization, must be regarded as a positive lesson. Although the Confucian commentary describes this hexagram in terms of self-seeking aspiration, the wretched protagonist of the figure is not invariably culpable, and neither judgment nor image imply this. In addition to being at the very bottom of the social pecking order, the maiden is portrayed as half-blind, crippled, and a slave. Although condemned by the commentators for importuning a marriage that would raise her status, a close reading of the lines reveals that only the sixth place suggests possible impropriety. The others all contain advice about how one of extremely low status should cope with restricted circumstances. The hexagram therefore can deal with either of two possible conditions, those involving propriety and those involving making do as an adaptation to adversity. In the first instance, it is useful to compare the symbolism here with that of the preceding hexagram of gradual progress. There we see the organic progression of the work allegorized as the proper marriage of a young woman. In this case, gradual progress has been turned upside down and the symbolism reversed. This young woman improperly pursues a marriage on her own initiative. Psychologically interpreted, it can be regarded as an image of the ego pushing its own agenda or desire for union. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Alchemy of Healing: the ego may move in directions and toward actions that are at variance with the intentions and standards of the self. The mature adult needs to recognize eventually his or her relative limitedness vis-a-vis the self field and the cosmic organism of which he or she is but a cell. We are subject to the ordering and growth intents of the entelechy of the whole. To recognize our relative limitedness vis-a-vis the self field is to renounce our claim to unilateral action. Though the ego ardently desires a marriage with the self, only the self can initiate such a union. Chao Tong-yi, an early Neo-Confucian, makes an observation which illuminates Leg's image. The superior man, in accordance with this, having regard to the far distant end, knows the mischief that may be done at the beginning. The most important things in the world are tendencies. Tendencies may be strong or weak. If a tendency is extremely strong, it cannot be controlled. But it is possible to control it quickly if one realizes that it is strong. To control it requires effort. If one does not realize early enough, it will not be easy to apply effort. To receive this hexagram without changing lines can be an admonition to examine your motives and actions in the matter at hand. Where are you out of line? If no obvious impropriety is involved, it could also portray an essentially impotent predicament. At such times, Ritzema/Karcher's synopsis bears repetition. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the changing status of someone who cannot control their circumstances. It emphasizes that finding a real field of activity through accepting this imposition is the adequate way to handle it. Suggestions for meditation. Compare propriety with the hexagram number 53, gradual progress. Then compare them both with the hexagram number 31, initiative. What are the similarities in their ideas? Now look at hexagrams number 11, 17, and 22 and observe the overall philosophy which begins to emerge. Next, we will look at our changing lines 3 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So, hexagram 43, changing line 3. Leg. The third line dynamic shows its subject about to advance with strong and determined looks. There will be evil. But the superior man bent on cutting off the criminal will walk alone and encounter the rain, till he be hated by his proper associates, as if he were contaminated by the others. In the end, there will be no blame against him. Wilhelm/Baines, to be powerful in the cheekbones brings misfortune. The superior man is firmly resolved. He walks alone and is caught in the rain. He is bespattered, and people murmur against him. No blame. Blofeld, strength in the cheekbones, misfortune, making a parade of our strength. The superior man is firmly determined, but if, while walking alone in the rain, he is irked by the mud, he is not to be blamed for that. Nothing must deflect us, but a little grumbling at unpleasantness is in order. Lu, to display too much strength in the face, misfortune. The superior man is determined. He walks alone through the rain, he gets wet, he is unhappy, no blame. Ritzema/Karcher, invigorating, tending towards the cheekbones, possessing a pitfall, a chansu or chief son or superior person, parting, solitary going, meeting rain, like soaking, possessing indignation, without fault. Slofnessy, mature in the cheekbones, there is inauspiciousness. The gentleman so broken up moves alone, meeting rain that is like moistening. There are hot springs, there is no trouble. Cleary 2, vigor in the face involves misfortune. Developed people part decisively and travel alone. Encountering rain, if they get wet, there is irritation but no fault. Wu, he has strong cheekbones, foreboding. The Junsi is determined to eradicate the little man. Walking alone, he encounters rain and gets wet. He is angry but not to be blamed. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. The superior man looks bent on cutting off the culprit. There will in the end be no error. Wilhelm/Baines, ultimately this is not a mistake. Blofeld, the resolutely determined superior man is blameless to the end. Ritzema/Karcher, completing without fault indeed. Clary 2, developed people part decisively and are faultless in the end. Wu, he will not be blamed in the end. Leg, line 3 is dynamic and displays his purpose too eagerly. Being beyond the central position gives an indication of evil. Lines 3 and 6 are also proper correlates, and as elsewhere in the I Ching, the meeting of yin and yang lines is associated with falling rain. Line 3, therefore, communicates with line 6 in a way that annoys his associates. Nevertheless, he commits no error, and in the end incurs no blame. Notes and paraphrases. Su, the man displays his purposes too openly. The superior man does not show outward hostility when bent on cutting off the criminal, since the time is not ripe, and the inferior man will endanger the situation through countermeasures. He resolves the difficulty by maintaining outward politeness, avoiding recriminations, and awaiting the propitious opportunity. Although he is misunderstood and maligned by the multitude, there will be no blame in the end. Wing, your struggle against an adversary is one you must approach alone. Although your entire milieu may be against this foe, the battle is still yours. In overcoming this difficulty, you may temporarily align yourself with it. This looks bad, and you are misunderstood, but you remain without error in the end. Editor. Rain symbolizes the union of heaven and earth, male with female, thought with feeling. It means encountering the truth, making a fertile connection. Psychologically, this line suggests the travail and turmoil involved in coming to grips with an unpleasant truth or duty. The superior man's associates are those complexes in the psyche which prefer not to cope with the situation. The misfortune of being strong in the cheekbones suggests that determined action accomplishes more than expressions of righteous indignation. A quote from Gareth Knight in Kabbalistic Symbolism. And he who takes his hand from the plow of his immediate earthly duty, which is a cosmic and spiritual duty also, however much familiarity may tend to breed contempt, will never by that act attain to his heavenly home in the stars. The furrow awaits his tilling, and until it be tilled, and the seed sown, and the harvest garnered and gathered in, his place remains in earth, with the added burden of rooting out the weeds and breaking up the clotted sods brought about by his own neglect and spiritual defection. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, bite the bullet and do what needs to be done without making a big deal out of it. And B, you are stuck with an unpopular but necessary duty. And changing line 5. Leg, the fifth line dynamic shows the small men like a bed of purslane, which ought to be uprooted with the utmost determination. The subject of the line having such determination, his action, in harmony with his central position, will lead to no error or blame. Wilhelm/Baines, in dealing with weeds, firm resolution is necessary. Walking in the middle remains free from blame. Blofeld, with the tenacity of spinach clinging to the earth, he blamelessly steers a middle course, that is, weak but determined. Lu, clinging weeds, determination is necessary. Taking the middle path, no blame. Ritzimo/Karcher, reeds, highlands, parting, center moving without fault. Slofnacy, the amaranth burns so broken up. In the middle of the ranks, there is no trouble. Clary 1, wild burdock root, cut through resolutely. Balanced action is impeccable. Clary 2, a hill of amaranth, parting with what is to be parted with. Balanced action is faultless. Here, it is appropriate to part with what the other yongs part with, i.e. the top yin line, but still preserve and nurture it. This is the path of balanced action, whereby it is possible to be faultless. However, when parting, after all, one does not avoid distinguishing between developed and undeveloped people, though one still does not forget what is universally the same in everyone. Therefore, balance is not yet obvious. Wu, like the lead sheep of a flock, he is determined to lead the charge against the little man. His approach from the center results in no error. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, his standing in the due mean is not yet clearly displayed. Wilhelm/Baines, the middle is not yet in the light. Blofeld, yes, blamelessly, but not brilliantly. In this situation, we can do well enough, but not very well. Ritzimmel/Karcher, center not yet shining indeed. Cleary too, balanced action is faultless, but balance is not yet obvious. Wu, though central, his action is not enlightening. Leg, purslane grows in shady places, and hence we find it here in close contiguity to the topmost line, which is yin. Line 5's proximity to line 6 is supposed to have a bad effect on him, so that while he does what is his central position requires, it is not without an effort. Chang Su says, if a man cherishes a single illicit desire in his mind, he has left the right way. Since 5 is the ruler's seat, evil may come to him, and strenuous efforts must be made to prevent such an evil. Notes and paraphrases Su, uprooting corruption from high offices requires the utmost determination. Wing, when attempting to overthrow adversaries or obstacles in powerful positions, great resolution and determination are necessary. The roots of this opposition run wide and deep, and unless completely eradicated, it may spring back to power. A calm thoroughness will see you through. Editor. Wilhelm and Liu render the other translators' wide range of specific plants as weeds, which is a much more evocative image of the inferior forces symbolized in this line. Psychologically, the idea is clear enough. Unless one uproots, brings under control every remnant of independent habitual affect within the psyche, it will eventually return to harm the work. Sometimes the majority Confucian commentary does not seem to apply, in which case Cleary's minority Buddhist interpretation above may be more apt. A quote from Shakespeare in Henry VI. Now 'tis the spring, and weeds are shallow rooted. Suffer them now, and they'll o'ergrow the garden. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, succumbing to neither despair nor overconfidence. One resolutely eliminates every trace of inferior perception and feeling associated with the matter at hand. And B, a balanced viewpoint roots out error. We'll now get a randomly card-drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while we sum the reading up. We first got Hexagram 43, which has dewy Laker march above Qian heaven, parting. And there is a single yin line at the very top, and all of the other lines are yang, and they're moving to push this false yin line, in essence, out of the hexagram. And I believe in the next hexagram, it reappears at the bottom, and then you have a yin line and then 5 yang lines. But in this situation, in like a governmental perspective, which it gives, that's one of the perspectives, it's the idea of there's an inferior element in power at the top that needs to be dealt with. And it mentioned that if there's even one, I think it calls it unrighteous man, in the situation, it's enough to bring the sage anxiety. And so with both a governmental perspective and an internal psyche perspective, bringing it back to that psyche perspective, it's like reining in our desires and the things that, it's a really great word for desires that you shouldn't really have, that can overwhelm you, that are not furthering the work, they're leading you down a different course, that you have to root all of those out. Otherwise, they'll come back around and hamper your ability to finish the work. The supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel. An underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all has, it's hexagram 54, the marrying maiden, and the trigrams are Zen thunder above dewy lake or marsh. And in this situation, there's a relationship with the youngest daughter and the eldest son. And so there's a split in their age that makes it improper, as well as the fact that in this cultural scenario, the woman instigates the union. So she goes after the man, and it seems to be for the goal of increasing her position. It calls her a slave in some of the things, and also different other things. But the idea is that this person is in a situation that they can't very easily control. And so they're seeking a relationship to advance themselves and give themselves a better position. But the way it's looked at is that it's not good. It's not the proper way to do things, apparently. Our changing lines 3 and 5 put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Changing line 3 has somebody walking in the rain and getting wet, and that there wouldn't be any error in the end. And changing line 5 let's read from Hilary Barrett's Eugene Walking Your Path, Creating the Future for Our Changing Lines really quick. 43. Changing line 3. Vigor in the cheekbones means a pitfall. Noble one decides, goes on alone, meets the rain, and is indignant as if she were soaked through. Not a mistake. You could locate your power in your cheekbones. You could be hard, rigidly unresponsive, concentrating on the face you present to others. This would repel relationships and lead to misfortune. Or you could decide, like the noble one who takes a stand as herself without wearing a mask of strength. Such supple authenticity opens the way for real exchange with real people. Full, free, enriching, and messy, your dignity may not survive, but the rain makes things grow. And then changing line 5, amaranth on high ground, decide, move to the center, no mistake. The nutritious healing amaranth grows on the high ground by itself. Nobody planted it there. Although you didn't intend or design it, there is something of value available, but not within easy reach. Is it worthwhile to go after it? You are well placed to decide how best to use your energy. What would be the balanced action? In this situation, I think what the idea was is that it was an unpopular route to go, but that it was going to be beneficial in the end. It was almost like somebody, instead of outwardly resisting a corrupt situation, they go along with it in order to influence it in the end. And so in that going along with it, there's blame from outside perspective, but it wouldn't be blameworthy in the end when the full wraparound intent becomes clear. The full wraparound intent. So, also want to look at James Dekorne a little bit more again. So, oops. In changing line 3, he breaks it down and says, at the very end, A, bite the bullet and do what needs to be done without making a big deal out of it. And B, you are stuck with an unpopular but necessary duty. And 5, changing line 5, A, succumbing to neither despair nor overconfidence, one resolutely eliminates every trace of inferior perception and feeling associated with the matter at hand. And B, a balanced viewpoint roots out error. A lot of this feels very as if being given or put in a situation where you're not able to call a lot of the shots, and that there is something that can be done in the situation at hand, but it's almost like in order to affect change in a positive way, to use the position to your advantage. So the view of the marrying maiden position is that of someone at the bottom rung of society, so to speak, that doesn't have a lot of ability to influence change or act in any way they want. So it's almost like going along with the natural tight spot and kind of restrained conditions we're in at the time. There are things we can do, and that might be that there is a way that change can be influenced, both internal in the psyche and external in our lives, that does have a positive effect. But also it was brought up that things needed to be approached without violence, and that violence was to be avoided. So again, this is something where something is brought up in court, or that you have to be careful of how you bring things out. The truth of the situation may not all need to be shown right now in order to affect the greatest change. Sometimes the best way you can affect change is by keeping your mouth shut and knowing when to do that, and when to divulge certain pieces of information. It's kind of like sitting on an idea of how to affect great change, even though being in kind of the back seat, or a backseat driver kind of concept. And it's easier to do that when you see the right time to act. And in the times that are not the right time to act, you're learning and finding out what you can do about it. It's not a time where we do nothing. It's a time where we are learning our environment of where we're at realistically, and learning what we can and cannot control, and when the best times to influence change are in a peaceful way, if there be such a path. This reading suggests that there is. It does also put a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility. The top line in the primary hexagram being a false yin line, sometimes it feels like we're in the whole world in that kind of a situation, that's the whole world is just one false yin line at the top of this hexagram. And not to say that there's no false yin within the bottom portions, but at least in this primary hexagram, that's the situation that we're looking at. And that can be overwhelmingly depressing and make us feel hopeless. But we may have more power to affect change than we know. And it starts internally. If we can repress inferior elements within ourselves or figure out a better way to integrate things, maybe would be a better way of putting it, and have the urges that are base within us not take outlet into our lives in any old way that they want, but that we learn how to navigate through life, finding out what in the end is going to be the most fruitful, what looking towards the very end and finding out how can we make this end well. And if it be that it looks like in the meantime we're not doing the right thing, to outsiders, that's not as important as coming up with an end goal that is satisfactory. And that is, for the greatest, for the most kind of a outcome. So I guess it really, really puts the onus on us to look at ourselves and look at our position in the world and look at it hard and long and feel the responsibility inherent in anyone that's on the planet right now to do something that is of benefit to the world and to themselves, and not continue entertaining behavior and tendencies that don't seek to get this marrying maiden situation figured out, this parting situation figured out. Some of the titles to our primary hexagram might be resoluteness, breakthrough, the symbol of decision, resolution, determination, parting, removing corruption, and eradication. You must decide how to deal with a situation before it reaches a dangerous point, or things will take their own course and overwhelm you. And then kind of a, no, that's not, well, yeah, this is helpful. In kind of an internal way, Cleary in the Taoist I Ching by I-ming says, moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Equanimous way, I think is how you say that. Eventually, discrimination will cease, and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate, and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. Verse 31 is what we will read from the Tao Te Ching, and my copy is by Jia Fu Feng and Jane English. Come here. Good weapons are instruments of fear. All creatures hate them. Therefore, followers of Tao never use them. The wise man prefers the left. The man of war prefers the right. Weapons are instruments of fear. They are not a wise man's tools. He uses them only when he has no choice. Peace and quiet are dear to his heart, and victory no cause for rejoicing. If you rejoice in victory, then you delight in killing. If you delight in killing, you cannot fulfill yourself. On happy occasions, precedence is given to the left, on sad occasions to the right. In the army, the general stands on the left, the commander-in-chief on the right. This means that war is conducted like a funeral. When many people are being killed, they should be mourned in heartfelt sorrow. That is why a victory must be observed like a funeral.